the human soldier was mocked by her, until her mother commanded respect. Its sleek towers reflected the distant sunlight, and the hum of energy shields and machinery filled the air. Humans were still a minority among the diverse species serving in the Corps, and Lieutenant Arya Dane could feel the weight of every eye upon her as she stepped off the transport shuttle. Arya was small in stature, with short brown hair that bounced as she walked and sharp green eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She had trained for years on Earth, mastering both hand-to-hand combat and interstellar strategy simulations, but she knew this environment was different. Here, her abilities would be measured not against other humans, but against species that had evolved for millennia in environments far more challenging than Earth's. As she entered the main training hall, the tension was palpable. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the space with effortless confidence. Some had 6 limbs, some had luminescent skin, and others could communicate telepathically. Among them, Commander Velira, an alien with shimmering violet scales and sharp, angular features, stood at the center, surveying the recruits with a piercing gaze. "Well, well," Velira said, her voice like the soft chime of metal. "A human. And one who thinks she can match the rest of us." Her words carried both amusement and disdain. The other cadets shifted uncomfortably. Some hid smiles, others avoided looking at Arya at all. Arya squared her shoulders and held her head high. She had been mocked before, but never so publicly, and never by someone so confident in their superiority. "I may be human," she said evenly, "but I'm ready to learn, and I won't be underestimated." Velira's eyes narrowed, glinting with a mix of curiosity and scorn. "We'll see if your skills match your courage, little human, but don't expect mercy." The training hall echoed with laughter from a few cadets, though some quickly realized the audacity of mocking Arya in front of the commander. Still, the words stung. Arya forced herself to ignore them, focusing instead on the rows of advanced training equipment lining the hall. Holographic targets floated in midair, energy grids hummed softly, and motion-sensing weapons glowed in shades of blue and green. The first exercise was simple in theory. Navigate a zero-gravity obstacle course, hit designated targets, and finish in record time. Yet the aliens treated it as a test of instinct and speed, something humans supposedly lacked. Arya floated into position, gripping the harness that would launch her into the course. She noticed Velira's sharp gaze following every movement, calculating, waiting for a mistake. Arya inhaled, letting her mind settle. She had trained for years on Earth, in simulations that demanded adaptability, creativity, and fast thinking. The obstacle course would test all of those skills, but in ways no simulation could fully prepare her for. The harness released her. She spun gracefully in the zero-gravity chamber, her fingers brushing against energy panels and gripping bars. Her human instincts kicked in, predicting trajectories, adjusting speed, and correcting her course mid-motion. Around her, the aliens moved with precision, their long limbs propelling them efficiently. Velira's movements were exact, almost too perfect, relying on sheer physical advantage. Arya noticed gaps in their pattern, moments when predictability became a weakness. With a deep breath, Arya adjusted her path, exploiting those gaps. A floating holographic target drifted slightly to the left, just out of reach of most cadets. She twisted, extended her arm, and hit it perfectly. Another target blinked in a tricky spot. She calculated its trajectory in seconds and struck it before most cadets even reached it. By the time she crossed the finish line, Arya was breathless but triumphant. Her score appeared on the monitor, top of the class. The hall went silent for a moment. Then Velira's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. "Luck, human, pure luck. Anyone could have done that." She paused, letting the words hang. "But you will learn your place soon enough." Arya clenched her fists at her sides. The word luck echoed in her mind, but she refused to let it shake her. She had seen the patterns, adapted faster than anyone, and solved problems others overlooked. This was not luck, it was human ingenuity. "Thank you, Commander," Arya said, her tone calm. "I'll continue to improve." Some cadets whispered among themselves. A few eyes held respect, though few dared show it openly. Arya realized this was the first battle she had to fight, not in combat but in perception. Every alien in the room had years of advantage in physicality or instinct, yet none had her adaptability or human intuition. The next days were no easier. Valira found ways to belittle Arya at every opportunity. In simulation drills, she would assign tasks that seemed impossible or deliberately change the rules mid-mission. Each time, Arya adapted. She discovered new techniques for controlling zero-gravity movement, blending speed and precision with clever problem-solving. Other cadets began to notice. Slowly, murmurs of admiration spread, though most remained silent to avoid Valira's wrath. Arya's presence began to challenge the unspoken hierarchy of the Corps. Humans were considered fragile, reactive, and predictable. Arya proved otherwise. During one exercise, Valira assigned Arya to a dual combat simulation with a much larger alien soldier. The rules were simple: disable your opponent without touching the walls of the chamber. Most humans would have failed instantly. Arya's opponent, a massive creature named Torek, smirked, assuming he would easily overpower her. The simulation began. Torek lunged forward, using his long arms to try to pin her. Arya dodged with fluid, almost dance-like movements, using Torek's momentum against him. She pressed the right buttons at exactly the right moments, activating energy panels that slowed Torek's movements. In seconds, she maneuvered him into a harmless immobilization field, completing the challenge. The room erupted with astonished gasps. Even Valira's lips twitched as if to conceal a hint of surprise. "HMPH," she said. "You were lucky again. That will not happen next time." Arya did not respond. She knew this would not be the last time she faced doubt or mockery. Yet each challenge revealed one thing: humans were underestimated at every turn. That underestimation could be a weapon if used wisely. That evening, Arya sat alone in her quarters, staring at the stars. She thought of Earth, her training, and her family, especially her mother, Admiral Selene Dane, a legend in the human fleet. Her mother had always reminded her that humans had qualities no alien could match: creativity, intuition, and the courage to act when rules failed. Arya clenched her fists, determination burning in her heart. She would not let Commander Valira or anyone else dictate her worth. Humans had a place in the stars, and she would prove it, one mission, one simulation, and one victory at a time. The next morning, the training hall was buzzing with excitement. Arya's performance had spread among cadets. Some approached her with curiosity, others with friendly competition. Even Valira watched with a sharper eye, her disdain tempered by a grudging curiosity. Arya floated into the training chamber with confidence. She knew more challenges awaited her, but each one was an opportunity. She remembered her mother's words: "Respect is earned, not demanded, and humans, when united, can achieve what no one expects." The mockery had not broken her. It had sharpened her. In a universe filled with alien power and precision, humans had something different, something unpredictable, brilliant, and unstoppable. And Arya was determined to show the galaxy what her species could do. The morning light streamed through the vast windows of the Elysian 9 Starbase Training Hall, casting long reflections on the polished floors. Lieutenant Arya Dane arrived early, her green eyes scanning the room for the familiar shapes of cadets preparing for the day's exercises. Today was different. Today, Commander Valira had announced a special joint simulation, a test of leadership, strategy, and adaptability. Arya's heart beat faster, not from fear but from anticipation. The exercise promised to be difficult, almost impossibly so. The twist: Valira would be her partner, assigned to guide and secretly to dominate her every decision. Everyone in the hall whispered about it. The consensus was clear. Humans were rarely chosen for these assignments, and no human had ever outperformed their alien partner. Valira arrived, her violet scales glinting in the soft sunlight, and her long, angular limbs moved with confident grace. She looked at Arya, her piercing eyes narrowing. "I hope you are prepared to follow instructions, human. I will not repeat myself." Her voice was calm, but it carried an unmistakable undercurrent of mockery. "I'm ready, Commander," Arya replied evenly. Her tone was polite, but her gaze conveyed quiet determination. She had learned that anger and defensiveness only distracted from performance. Focus and clever thinking were far stronger weapons. The simulation room was enormous, a zero-gravity chamber filled with holographic obstacles, moving targets and shifting terrain. A digital countdown appeared. T-minus 5 minutes to mission start. The briefing projected above the center of the chamber outlined their objective. Navigate the course. Collect 3 energy cores scattered in unpredictable locations, and return to the base platform. The challenge seemed simple in theory, but the room's ever-changing obstacles would test even the most experienced cadets. Valira's gaze swept the room. "Do you understand the objective, human?" she asked, though her tone implied she expected Arya to fail. "I do," Arya said confidently, "and I have a plan." Valira tilted her head slightly, intrigued. "A plan? Go ahead, human. Let's see if it is worth anything." Arya studied the chamber, noting patterns in the floating obstacles. She saw areas where energy barriers shifted slowly, creating safe passages. She observed the movement of floating platforms and noticed that some targets appeared only briefly, blinking in and out of visibility. Most aliens relied on speed and brute precision, but she realized the key was timing and strategy, something humans excelled at. "First," she said quietly, "we split the cores. You take the upper left quadrant, I'll handle the lower right. We'll synchronize our paths to avoid collisions." Valira raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. You intend to coordinate rather than follow my orders." She paused, studying Arya. "Very well. Let us see if your logic holds." The countdown reached 0 and the simulation began. Arya launched herself into the chamber, spinning gracefully in zero gravity. Her body moved fluidly, instinct and training guiding her every motion. She reached the first core, dodged a swinging energy beam and grabbed it with precise timing. Her heart raced, not with fear but with exhilaration. Valira moved with elegance, her longer limbs giving her reach and speed advantages. She grabbed her assigned core quickly, but the real challenge had just begun. The shifting barriers and moving targets demanded split-second decisions. Arya adjusted her trajectory, anticipating the obstacles and exploiting their patterns. A small adjustment here, a subtle push against a floating panel there. She moved like a dancer, each motion calculated and efficient. Halfway through the simulation, an unexpected event occurred. A series of holographic walls rose in the center, threatening to block both their paths. Most cadets would have panicked or slowed down. Arya thought fast. She noticed a narrow gap between 2 walls. With a burst of energy, she angled herself through it just as the walls snapped together behind her. Valira, slightly delayed by her reliance on strength rather than flexibility, struggled to pass through the same space. Arya reached out, not physically but with a gesture signaling Valira's path. For a moment, she wondered if the commander would see it as an insult to her authority. To her surprise, Valira adjusted her path without complaint, moving faster than expected. They reached the final core, positioned on a spinning platform. Timing was crucial. Arya calculated the rotation in her mind, pushed off a nearby panel and grabbed the core in perfect synchronization. Valira mirrored the action, and together they zipped back toward the exit. As they landed on the base platform, the simulation declared, "Mission complete, time, record performance." A murmur ran through the room. Even the cadets who had doubted her earlier could not hide their amazement. Arya's plan had worked flawlessly. She had relied on human intuition, creativity, and precise observation, tools many aliens underestimated. Valera stood still for a moment, her tail curling slightly. HMPH, she said finally, her voice carrying a trace of surprise. You succeeded, but I doubt it will happen again. Arya met her gaze calmly. I don't rely on luck, Commander. I observe, adapt, and act. Valera's eyes narrowed. Impressive. Perhaps. You are not as primitive as I thought. The words were faint praise, but Arya felt a spark of recognition. She had broken through the first barrier, doubt. Even a small acknowledgement from Valera was a victory. After the simulation, the cadets gathered in clusters, discussing the performance. Many whispered about Arya's ingenuity, though most avoided drawing attention from Valera. Arya walked among them, offering quiet encouragement and sharing tips. She knew that humans needed allies, and allies could not be earned through arrogance alone. They required respect, demonstrated through skill and leadership. During lunch, Valera approached her. Human, she said, her tone neutral, your method was effective. Not elegant, but effective. Thank you, Arya replied, keeping her voice calm. Efficiency can be just as important as elegance. Valera studied her for a moment, her expression unreadable. You are bold, she said. Few humans dare to act independently in the face of command. That trait may serve you well or get you into trouble. Arya smiled slightly. I'll take my chances. Later, as the day ended, Arya returned to her quarters, feeling a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. The simulation had tested her in ways she had never experienced before, and she had proven herself, not only to Valera but also to herself. Humans were often underestimated, but she had shown that perception could be challenged, and respect could be earned through action and intellect. Before sleeping, she reviewed the simulation data on her hollow tablet. Every obstacle, every movement, every decision was analyzed. She noticed patterns Valera had not, small tendencies in the way the alien commander predicted movement. If she could anticipate these in future exercises, she could push the boundaries even further. Her mind wandered briefly to her mother, Admiral Scifi Dane. Her mother's reputation was legendary throughout the Corps. Stories of her strategic brilliance and courage were told in every human training academy. Arya remembered Scifi's advice. The galaxy respects action, not words. Show what humans can do, and you will earn respect. Doubt is temporary, skill is permanent. Arya smiled, feeling a surge of determination. She was no longer the cadet mocked by Valera. She was a soldier, capable of proving herself through ingenuity and courage. And one day, she thought, she would show the galaxy what humans could truly achieve. The next day, a new challenge awaited. A larger, more complex simulation with multiple teams, testing cooperation, strategy, and adaptability under pressure. Arya knew Valera would be watching closely, and so would the entire starbase. This was not only a test of skill, but a test of character, and Arya was ready. As she floated to sleep, the stars of Elytra 9 twinkled above, reminding her that humanity's reach had only just begun. In a universe that doubted humans, she had already begun to change perceptions, and she would not stop. The Elytra 9 starbase shimmered under the pale light of its sun. Lieutenant Arya Dane moved through the corridors with calm confidence, yet a subtle tension ran through the air. Rumors had spread among the cadets that her mother, Admiral Scifi Dane, would be visiting the base for an inspection. Scifi Dane was legendary, a human leader whose strategic brilliance and courage had earned respect across the galaxy. The news ignited curiosity, awe, and, for some, unease. Arya had always admired her mother from a distance. Scifi had taught her the values of discipline, observation, and the strength of human ingenuity. But this visit carried more weight than any lesson. It was a chance for Arya to prove not only her worth, but also the capabilities of humans in the wider Corps. Meanwhile, Commander Valera strode through the hallways, her violet scales glinting in the sunlight. She had heard the same rumors and was unshaken, confident in her authority. Aliens, she believed, would always surpass humans in reflexes, coordination, and physical endurance. The thought of a legendary human admiral observing a junior human soldier amused her, but only slightly. She intended to remain composed and dominant as always. The starbase's main assembly chamber hummed with anticipation. Cadets, officers, and trainers filled the space, their alien forms diverse in size, shape, and color. At the center, Arya stood with her posture straight and head high, her uniform neat, every movement precise. She was determined not to show nerves, despite the weight of expectation. A soft vibration ran through the floor as the doors opened. Silence fell immediately. Admiral Selene Dane entered, radiating presence. Even without speaking, her aura commanded attention. Tall and poised, with sharp eyes and an air of quiet confidence, she moved through the room with measured steps. Every cadet instinctively straightened, and whispers ceased. Arya felt a flutter of pride. Her mother's reputation was immense, and now she would see firsthand what Arya had accomplished. Selene's gaze swept the room, assessing everything in seconds. When it settled on Arya, there was a brief, subtle nod, acknowledgement and encouragement that Arya carried quietly in her heart. Valera stepped forward, masking her curiosity behind a veneer of authority. "Admiral Dane," she said, her voice precise, "welcome to Elisra 9. Your timing is interesting." There was a faint edge to her tone, almost playful yet cautious. Selene's lips curved slightly in acknowledgement. "Commander Valera," she said evenly, "thank you. I am here to observe training operations and cadet performance, especially those who stand out." Her gaze shifted to Arya, deliberate but unassuming. Valera's eyes flicked to Arya. "Yes, I've noticed the human lieutenant. She has potential, though her methods are unorthodox." There was a slight tension in her voice. Aliens were accustomed to hierarchy and protocol, and Valera expected her authority to remain unchallenged. She did not anticipate Selene Dane's presence. Selene's voice was calm but firm. "Potential is only realized through action. And humans are known to act with creativity and courage, qualities that often surpass strict protocol. We must recognize it when we see it." Her words were precise, leaving no room for contradiction. The room absorbed the statement like a quiet shockwave. Arya felt a surge of pride and determination. This was her moment, not to boast, but to show that humans could excel alongside aliens, even when underestimated. The next exercise was announced, a multi-team strategy simulation. Each team would navigate a complex, shifting battlefield, capture designated targets, and coordinate movements while avoiding hazards. Valera's team included Arya, and she assumed control, expecting to dominate and belittle the human soldier. "Follow my instructions exactly," Valera commanded, her tone sharp. "There is no room for error." Arya nodded politely, concealing her strategy behind a calm exterior. She had observed Valera's tendencies in previous exercises, a reliance on speed, precision, and predictable movements. Arya planned to exploit the pattern she had noticed, blending human creativity with tactical insight. The simulation chamber came alive. Holographic obstacles shifted unpredictably, platforms rotated, and energy barriers flashed in random sequences. Valera began issuing orders, precise and forceful. Most cadets followed without question. Arya, however, anticipated changes before they occurred, adjusting her path with subtle shifts in timing and positioning. At one point, Valera ordered a direct route through a corridor filled with rapidly spinning energy beams. Most cadets hesitated or struggled to avoid the hazards. Arya analyzed the rotation patterns in seconds, calculated the timing, and devised an alternative path along the edge of the corridor. It required careful navigation, but she avoided every beam and reached the target before anyone else. Valira's violet eyes narrowed, registering surprise for the first time. "Interesting," she muttered. "You did not follow orders, yet you succeeded." Arya said calmly, "Following orders is important, Commander, but adapting to circumstances is equally crucial." Selene observed silently, her expression thoughtful but approving. The lesson she imparted silently was clear. Humans could think beyond rigid rules, combining intellect and intuition in ways aliens sometimes overlooked. The simulation continued, escalating in difficulty. Holographic enemies appeared unpredictably, platforms shifted without warning, and energy fields blocked direct paths. Arya moved fluidly, improvising as needed. Valira, initially frustrated by her inability to control every variable, began to rely subtly on Arya's instincts. She could not admit it aloud, but the human soldier's intuition complemented her own precision. By the final stage, the teams faced a massive energy core in the center of the battlefield. Capturing it required coordination, timing, and ingenuity. Arya studied the patterns of shifting platforms, predicted enemy movements, and positioned herself for the perfect opportunity. She reached the core first, activating it with precise timing. Valira arrived moments later, noting Arya's strategic placement had made the task possible. The simulation ended with Arya's team achieving record performance. Cadets and instructors murmured with admiration, and even Valira's expression betrayed grudging acknowledgement. Selene stepped forward, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Lieutenant Dane, your performance demonstrates human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. You have earned respect not through words but through action." Her gaze met Valira's. "And it is important to recognize excellence, regardless of species." Valira's lips pressed into a thin line. She could not openly contradict the Admiral without damaging her own credibility. The room waited, tense but quiet. After a moment she inclined her head slightly toward Arya, an unspoken acknowledgement of achievement. Arya's chest swelled with quiet pride. This was not just personal recognition, it was a turning point. Humans, often underestimated, were capable of brilliance and leadership. Today she had proven it. After the exercise, cadets crowded around Arya. They asked questions, shared observations, and expressed admiration. For the first time, many truly saw humans not as fragile or predictable, but as adaptable and resourceful. Arya answered politely, careful to teach and encourage rather than boast. Leadership, she knew, was built on example, not arrogance. Valira watched silently from the edge of the group. Her pride and habitual condescension clashed with the undeniable truth: Arya had succeeded. She had earned the respect that had been denied to her before. Later that evening, Arya returned to her quarters, exhausted but elated. She reviewed the simulation data once more, noting patterns, timings, and behaviors. Every observation strengthened her understanding, preparing her for the next challenge. A soft chime signaled a message from Selene. "Proud of you, Arya," the text read. "Today, you showed that humans belong among the stars. Continue to trust your instincts." Confidence grows through action. Respect follows naturally. Arya smiled, feeling warmth and motivation. Her mother's guidance, combined with her own determination, formed a powerful combination. She had faced mockery, doubt, and underestimation, and she had turned them into opportunity. As the lights of Elisra 9 dimmed for night, Arya stared out at the glowing planet below. She understood now that the journey ahead would not be easy. Commander Valira, like many others, might resist acknowledgement, but Arya knew that consistent skill, courage, and insight would speak louder than words. The galaxy was vast, filled with beings who doubted humanity. Yet humans, she realized, had something special: the ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to act with courage when circumstances demanded. And Lieutenant Arya Dane intended to show the universe exactly what humans could accomplish. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to demonstrate skill. But for now, she allowed herself a quiet moment of pride. The first step had been taken. Respect had been earned, not demanded, and the balance had begun to shift. Arya closed her eyes, ready to face the next day. A human soldier, once mocked, was beginning to command recognition. And in the heart of Elis Renine, a legend was quietly forming, not through words, but through action. The morning on Elis Renine dawned crisp and clear, but an unusual tension filled the starbase. Lieutenant Arya Dane could feel it in the air as she walked through the corridors. Alarms were flashing silently on the training monitors, signaling a malfunction in the station's defense systems. A nearby research planet, Terralis 3, relied on the base's shields for protection from cosmic storms and rogue asteroid clusters. If the shields failed, the planet would face disaster. Commander Valira appeared, her violet scales gleaming in the sunlight streaming through the observation windows. "Lieutenant Dane," she said briskly, "it seems we have an unscheduled challenge." "I hope you are ready to follow my lead," Arya nodded. "I'm ready, Commander. Let's assess the situation first." She had learned that obedience alone was not enough. Observation and careful planning were essential. The control room buzzed with activity. Holographic displays showed energy fluctuations in the shield grid, highlighting areas of weakness. Engineers scrambled to stabilize the system, but the problem was complex. Multiple nodes were failing simultaneously, and manual recalibration alone would not suffice. Valira leaned over a console, issuing sharp commands. "Divert power to Sector 3. Synchronize nodes 4 and 7. Hurry." Arya analyzed the displays, her mind moving quickly. The sequence Valira proposed was partially correct, but she noticed an overlooked factor: a feedback loop in Node 5 that would destabilize the shields if power was redirected too quickly. "Commander," she said, keeping her tone respectful, "I suggest a different sequence. Divert to Sector 5 first, then synchronize nodes 3 and 7. It will stabilize the feedback loop and prevent further failures." Valira paused, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Are you questioning my instructions, human?" Arya held her ground. "Not questioning, Commander. I am proposing an adjustment based on my observation." The room fell silent. Cadets and engineers watched nervously. Aliens were not accustomed to humans giving alternative strategies in real-time emergencies. Most would have followed Valira's orders without question, but Arya's confidence and clarity demanded attention. After a tense moment, Valira inclined her head slightly. "Proceed, human." Arya moved quickly, issuing commands through the console. Engineers followed her directions with precision. Slowly, the energy readings stabilized, and the shields began to regain strength. The tension in the room eased, but there was no time to celebrate. The system was only partially restored. "Good," Valira said, her voice controlled but betraying a hint of acknowledgement. "Continue." Arya continued coordinating the team. She monitored fluctuating nodes, adjusted power distribution, and anticipated the system's responses. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, to think several steps ahead, was precisely what the base needed. Meanwhile, a message arrived from the Planetary Council of Terralis 3. The inhabitants were panicked. Meteor fragments had entered the atmosphere, and without the base's shields, catastrophe was imminent. Arya's determination sharpened. Lives depended on her decisions. "Commander," Arya said, "we need to create a dynamic shield pattern. Sector alignment alone won't stop the meteor fragments. We must calculate their trajectory in real time and adjust the shields accordingly." Valira's eyes flickered with surprise. "Dynamic shielding, human innovation. Very well. Execute." Arya's fingers moved across the console with precision, setting the shield nodes into a continuous feedback loop. Holographic projections displayed the meteor's paths, and she adjusted the shield fields in real time. It was a delicate balance, requiring focus, quick calculation, and flawless timing. Cadets and engineers watched, amazed at her clarity under pressure. Aliens who had once underestimated her now realized the true capability of a human mind: adaptability, intuition, and the courage to make decisions when stakes were high. Valira observed silently from the corner, her pride and habit of control clashing with reality. She had always relied on raw power and strict procedures, yet here was a human soldier orchestrating a solution far more effective than she could have devised. Minutes passed like hours. Meteors approached, their paths glowing in the holographic display. With each adjustment, Arya kept the shield stable, diverting energy where needed and anticipating failures before they occurred. Finally, the system stabilized completely. The alarm ceased, and the holographic shields formed a brilliant dome around the planet, deflecting the incoming meteor fragments. Terralis 3 was safe. The engineers let out sighs of relief, and cadets exchanged looks of astonishment. Valira stepped forward, her expression composed but her voice softer than before. "Human, your solution was effective. You prevented what could have been disaster." Arya exhaled, her body tense but her mind calm. "Thank you, Commander. It was a team effort." The engineers and cadets executed the plan flawlessly. Valira inclined her head slightly. "Indeed, I underestimated you." At that moment, Admiral Selene Dane appeared in the control room via holographic link. Her presence brought an immediate sense of authority. "Lieutenant Dane," she said, her voice calm yet commanding, "I have been monitoring your performance. You demonstrated not only skill and intelligence but leadership under pressure. You have earned my respect and the respect of all who witness this." The cadets cheered quietly, though respectfully. The aliens present, including Valira, understood the weight of Selene Dane's words. She was a human whose authority transcended species and rank. To be acknowledged by her was a rare honor. Valira's posture shifted subtly. She remained proud, but her condescension had begun to fade. She could not ignore the fact that a human, Arya Dane, had successfully managed a crisis that could have devastated a planet. Selene continued, her gaze meeting Valira's. "Leadership is not about authority alone. It is about observation, adaptation, and decisive action. Lieutenant Dane exemplifies these qualities. Take note, Commander." Valira inclined her head, acknowledging the lesson without words. Arya could feel the tension between the two adults' ease. This was not the end of challenges, but a turning point in perception and respect. After the emergency was resolved, Arya was allowed a moment of quiet reflection. She walked through the corridors of the starbase, observing cadets practicing drills, engineers monitoring systems, and aliens moving with efficiency and purpose. She realized that respect was earned not through boasting, but through consistent action, courage, and the ability to adapt under pressure. That evening in her quarters, Arya received a personal message from her mother. "Today you proved the human advantage, creativity, intuition, and courage. Never forget that these qualities will always set you apart. Command respect through action, and the galaxy will recognize it." Arya smiled. Her mother's guidance was more than words. It was a philosophy that shaped her every decision. She reflected on the events of the day: Valira's begrudging acknowledgement, the cadets' newfound admiration, and her own quiet confidence in human capability. She also considered the future. The universe was vast, filled with unknown challenges, unpredictable crises, and beings who doubted humanity. Yet each success, each demonstration of skill and ingenuity, shifted perception and built recognition. She understood that leadership was not a title but an ongoing responsibility, one that required courage, foresight, and humility. As Arya gazed at the stars from her window, the orange and green clouds of Elisra 9 swirling below, she knew the journey was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new simulations, new missions, and perhaps real encounters that tested everything she had learned. But she felt ready. Humans were underestimated not because they were weak, but because they were unpredictable and capable of brilliance beyond expectation. And Arya Dane, the human soldier once mocked by Commander Velira, had begun to prove that humanity's place in the stars was not just real, it was undeniable. For the first time, she allowed herself a quiet thought of pride. She had faced doubt, challenge, and skepticism, and turned it into opportunity. She had demonstrated leadership, creativity, and courage, and she knew that the universe would remember the human soldier who refused to be underestimated. Tomorrow, new trials would come. But tonight, Lieutenant Arya Dane rested, ready to continue showing the galaxy the true strength of humanity, one action at a time. The Elisra 9 starbase buzzed with quiet anticipation. Lieutenant Arya Dane walked through the corridors, her green eyes alert and her posture straight. After days of training, simulations, and high-pressure problem-solving, the atmosphere had shifted. Cadets, engineers, and even alien officers moved with renewed respect toward her. She could sense the subtle nods, the curious glances, and the hushed conversations about her ingenuity. Yet one presence still lingered in her mind: Commander Velira. The alien officer, despite acknowledging Arya's skill during the shield crisis, maintained a composed exterior. Pride and habit kept her from openly admitting the truth. Humans, and Arya in particular, were exceptional. Arya entered the main assembly chamber where a formal recognition ceremony was being held. The hall was filled with cadets, instructors, and officers from multiple species. At the front, Admiral Selene Dane stood proudly, observing the room with her usual calm authority. Today was not only about celebrating past achievements but cementing respect and unity among the cadets. "Lieutenant Dane," Selene began, her voice steady and commanding, "your performance over the past weeks has demonstrated not only human skill but also leadership, ingenuity, and courage. You have faced skepticism, mockery, and challenges that would have overwhelmed most. Yet you succeeded. Today, the Corps recognizes your accomplishments." A holographic display projected Arya's accomplishments: simulation scores, tactical adjustments, and leadership moments that had turned crises into victories. Cadets whispered excitedly, some nudging each other in astonishment. Arya's cheeks flushed slightly, but she kept her composure, knowing this was about the humans she represented as much as herself. Selene's gaze turned toward Velira. "Commander, your role as mentor and evaluator is crucial. I trust you have observed Lieutenant Dane's performance closely." Velira's violet eyes met Arya's. There was a flicker of humility and acknowledgement. "Indeed, Admiral, Lieutenant Dane has proven herself remarkable. Her insight and adaptability have saved not only simulations, but also the planet Terralis 3. I now understand that humans possess qualities that even the most precise species cannot replicate fully." The room was silent. For Velira, speaking words of respect was a rare act, yet she did so without hesitation this time. Cadets exchanged looks of amazement. Some whispered that this was the first time Velira had openly acknowledged a human soldier's superiority. Arya nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Commander," she said simply. "I learned from observation, guidance, and collaboration. Every team member played a part in these successes." Selene smiled, her eyes proud. "That is the mark of true leadership. Recognition is earned not only through individual skill, but through fostering collaboration and inspiring those around you." The ceremony continued, with Arya receiving the official commendation for exemplary performance. Her name was etched into the Starbase's Hall of Records, joining the ranks of those who had demonstrated exceptional skill and leadership. Yet more important than the plaque or accolades was the shift in perception. Humans were no longer underestimated, they were respected, and Arya had become a living example of their potential. After the formal ceremony, cadets approached Arya, eager to learn, ask questions, and share admiration. She moved among them with grace and humility, offering guidance and encouragement. For many, It was the first time they truly saw a human not just as a participant, but as a capable leader. Valira watched from the edge of the group, silent yet observant. Her pride still held a hint of resistance, but the respect she now felt was undeniable. The alien commander approached Arya once the crowd had dispersed. "Lieutenant Dane," Valira began, her voice quieter than usual, "I underestimated you. Your strategy, composure, and foresight have surpassed expectations. It seems I have lessons yet to learn from humans." Arya smiled gently. "We all learn from each other, Commander. Strength comes not from dominance, but from cooperation and adaptability." Valira considered her words carefully, then nodded. "Perhaps the galaxy will remember this lesson longer than I would have expected." Later that evening, Arya returned to her quarters, her mind still buzzing with the events of the day. She reviewed her training logs, her strategic decisions, and the outcomes of every exercise. The data was impressive, but it was the recognition that mattered most, the acknowledgement that humans could match or even exceed other species in skill, intelligence, and leadership. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. It was a holographic message from Admiral Selene Dane. "Arya," the message began, her voice calm but proud, "today you have proven the truth I have always known. Humans can achieve greatness in the stars. Never let doubt cloud your vision. Respect is earned through action, courage, and wisdom, and you have done so brilliantly. Remember, leadership is not about command alone. It is about inspiring others to see what they are capable of." Arya felt warmth and gratitude. Her mother's guidance was always steady, yet it now carried the weight of affirmation. She had not only met expectations, she had exceeded them, shifting perceptions and earning the respect of those who once doubted her. The next morning, the starbase resumed routine operations. Yet the environment was noticeably different. Cadets approached Arya with questions, engineers sought her advice, and even Valira included her insights in planning sessions. Humans were no longer observers, they were collaborators, innovators, and leaders. A new simulation was announced, more complex than ever, requiring multi-species coordination and real-time strategy adjustments. Arya moved to the command console, her calm confidence evident. Valira joined her, this time as a partner rather than a critic. "Shall we begin, Lieutenant?" Valira asked, her tone free of mockery. "Yes, Commander," Arya replied. "Together." The simulation commenced, presenting dynamic obstacles, shifting objectives, and holographic adversaries. Arya guided the team with clarity and precision, coordinating actions between humans and aliens seamlessly. Valira observed and contributed, her respect for Arya's judgment evident. Throughout the exercise, Arya demonstrated foresight, adaptability, and leadership. Every decision was measured, every adjustment precise. The simulation concluded with unprecedented efficiency, earning praise from instructors and admiration from cadets. Selene appeared in the control room via holographic link once more. "Lieutenant Dane," she said, her voice proud, "you have demonstrated that humans can lead, inspire, and achieve extraordinary outcomes. Your performance today confirms that respect is a natural result of excellence." Valira nodded, adding softly, "And your methods have taught me new ways to approach strategy and leadership. I am grateful for your insight, Arya Dane." Arya smiled. "Thank you, Commander. Collaboration and learning from each other make us stronger." Later, as the sun set over Elis Renine, Arya stood on a balcony overlooking the planet below. The orange and green clouds swirled gently, reflecting the lights of the starbase. She reflected on the journey, the mockery, the challenges, the simulations, and the crises. Each moment had shaped her, honed her skills, and proven the potential of humanity. The galaxy was vast, filled with doubt, challenge, and unknown dangers. Yet humans, Arya realized, had qualities that no alien species could replicate entirely: creativity, courage, intuition, and the ability to adapt when all seemed uncertain. She had proven this not through words but through action. Arya's thoughts turned to the future. There would be new missions, new cadets to mentor, and new opportunities to demonstrate human capability. She felt ready, not just as a soldier, but as a leader who could inspire respect and confidence across species. In that quiet moment, she understood a profound truth. Being underestimated was never a weakness, it was an opportunity. Humans had always been underestimated, yet they thrived because of it. And now, Arya Dane had become a symbol of that potential, a beacon showing the galaxy that humans were not only capable, they were remarkable. The galaxy, she knew, would remember. And Lieutenant Arya Dane, the human soldier once mocked by Commander Valira, had finally commanded the respect she, and all humans, deserved.